So for my co-ops, since I was in political science, I worked in a law firm because I had initially thought that I wanted to go to law school. And so that co-op was pretty instrumental in showing me that I did not want to go to law school. So I think that probably was like kind of the main factor of kind of what drove my career from there. I think I just thought that it was going to be maybe a lot more glamorous. I was going to be helping people a lot more than I was. But the things that I took away from the co-op, even if I'm not actually working in that field right now, I got some, project management experience. Even the little projects that they had given me on the co-op, I got some skills there that when I brought them to the Board of Registration in Medicine, my first job, I started at a level that was higher than some of the other entry levels that were starting. And they told me, straight out that it was because of my co-op experience. So. It's completely huge. I guess I can't say it enough if you guys are thinking about not doing a co-op, that you definitely should do a co-op because it will help you, even if it's not sort of in the field that you are ultimately going to be at, it's going to help you.
So actually, right before I started my first co-op, I decided to get an internship after my freshman year. And I felt like I needed to get some experience before I started the first co-op so I could just hit the ground running once I started that co-op. So I did an internship at Cambridge Systematics on things that I knew it was in IT related. So I was an IT intern. So my first co-op was actually with EMC, and I did quality assurance. When that area, I felt like I eventually wanted to end in software engineering, but in doing quality assurance in my first two co-ops, I was able to really gain experience in that and have a greater appreciation for the software development that the software engineers were doing at EMC. So I did that for the first two co-ops, and then for my third co-op, that's where I ended up at Raytheon doing software engineering. And of course, you hear it all the time, you're able to apply what you learn in the classroom, more so than you do in projects. And a couple other things that I got out of the co-ops were to really expand my network. So even right after that co-op, I was able to reach out to different people, and it's not, you do have your database, right, when you're applying for the different co-ops here in Northeastern, but I think expanding the network is really important. And even then, we didn't have LinkedIn, or LinkedIn was in the early phases, so you really had to have that face-to-face interaction with people at your job, and you can learn a lot from them, whether it's really for the future, for them to learn something from you. You can do that reverse mentoring, or if you wanted to reach out to them later on for a full-time position or for a co-op. So I saw co-op as an opportunity to both apply what you have learned in the classroom and, of course, to expand your network.
The first two co-ops I did, the first one was I worked at a mobile financial software company. They made BlackBerry software. I don't know if you heard BlackBerry's tanking right now. Yeah.
Aren't you glad you're not working there now?
Yeah. Well, actually, I think that first one I did, they're making iPhone software now. But, the second one I did it was actually a linguistics software. They did government analysis of people chatting on the internet and other translational services for the government. But the reason why I actually only mentioned those two short ones, and the third one I did face forward, was that one thing I kind of picked up was two things: networking and culture. So one of the things that I got out of co-op, and I think about it a lot more now, is that the kind of place that you work at, the culture is really important. And so getting that experience on co-op for me, I didn't really think about it so hard until more recently, when I actually found out what happens when culture is taken away from you. So when Oracle acquired, I don't mean to bad mouth Oracle, this is probably just one small division of a big company, but one thing I realized is that the places that I had done co-op at had great culture. And so when you do go out there and you do go looking for jobs, I think one thing to pay attention to is not just brand name of the company, but what kind of people you have, what kind of company events they do, how the people interact with each other. And so one of the things that actually our startup that I'm at right now that we're really, really placing important weight on is building a great culture, because that extends as we grow the company. And the other part was networking. It's really important. Actually, I got this startup job through a friend, not through LinkedIn. It was through someone, actually, a connection in high school. I did wrestling. So this was someone who went to Sloan Business School and actually connected me with the founder of this company that I'm at now. So that had nothing to do with actually my prior job experience stuff, but I have another coworker who I pulled from my last job. He's also a Northeastern guy. So that's the power of networking. You get jobs outside of LinkedIn once you start working in the real world.
So
Just
tell-
to add to that,
Yeah,
if I may,
please.
about the piece about culture, and I think it's really important. So you have 3 co-ops. I did all my co-ops at big companies, which maybe in hindsight had done some at a startup or a mid-sized company just to get that experience, because then you realize what you really don't want to pursue, especially whether it's the culture or even the opportunity, like software engineering is what I ultimately wanted to do. That's why I wanted to try out the quality assurance, and I realized then that was not for me. So that's another reason to do co-op if you're deciding not to do it.
So my company, we're about 100, maybe a little more than 100 employees right now, and that's grown exponentially in the past couple of years. We're just growing as the industry is kind of demanding that we grow. And so I work on the technical services team. It's based out of Boston. Our company culture is amazing. I've worked in some bigger institutions, a couple of like kind of smaller ones. This is the smallest, and they had kind of said, like in the interview, you know, kind of feeling out how I would feel about going from a bigger institution to a smaller institution. And I love it. I think, you know, you get to wear a lot of hats in kind of a smaller place. There aren't really as many, you know, my job description is kind of like, I'm going to get the projects that I'm going to get, and then I'm going to learn them along the way. And there's going to be these amazing people that I'm working with that I can kind of call on, and they can help me with it. And so I'm learning something new every single day in my job. And that's, for me, that's huge. That's what I've always wanted, to kind of be a perpetual student. So I guess for a typical day, there kind of are no typical days. We have somewhat of a set schedule, but a lot of the things that we have to do are after hours, just because if we're making impacts on the electronic health records, we don't want to be doing that during the day when people are going to be seen, and with the potential, you know, of the health record going down and then not being able to see the patient information. But I mean, I guess for to add on to the culture as well, being kind of like a smaller type industry, we do kind of fun things like happy hours on Fridays. We have an annual company trip where they fly us to an exotic location. It's all inclusive. And it's to meet all of the people that work, and they go to the client sites. We have people in a Chicago office and a Vermont office, and so for us to be able to like interact with these people that we kind of email and IM on a daily basis, to get that face-to-face interaction is huge. So, you know, last year we went to Mexico, so I'm hoping that they'll top it this year. So just wanted to throw that in, but.
So you would think that I work at GE and it's a big organization. So I mentioned before, depending on the location, you actually have different cultures. So in this one in particular in Westboro, there are only about maybe tops 200 people there. And this, where I'm working at is a recent acquisition for GE, which is called Accelerex. And where that's what I mentioned, that we make those bioreactors and those mixers. So this site is interesting, where we actually have marketing, we have finance, we have QA, all in that same facility, where if I was back in Waukesha, our US headquarters, they'd be at different locations, not just in that same building. So coming from that recent acquisition, even though I've been working with GE for 3 years, it's very much felt like I've been wearing many hats. So I am an engineer on the team, and I have a software background, but because it's more like a startup environment, I actually had to pick up some hardware as well, so program the PLC in addition to the software, or doing EHS, which is the Environmental Health and Safety Committee, or doing a lot of like non-technical work as well. So most of my work, 90% of it is engineering, but I've had to wear other hats as well. And GE, where I work at, is an environment where you definitely feel like you're making a huge contribution. Like you, my day-to-day it's different, because I am interacting with the different teams, the project management. We have many meetings, right? So there's times where you are sitting at your desk and you're getting your work done, or on the manufacturing floor, or you may be in one of the many meetings that GE actually has, right? So it really depends on the day, but yeah, I mean, that's how it is at this particular site.
My typical day, it's so cliche to say it's not atypical, but with the software startup stuff, my team at the last job I was at was probably about 12 people, and my company right now is about 6 full-time, with a couple consulting people part-time. So my day-to-day, it tends to be probably on average about 65% programming, but that's also doing things like when I say programming or technical stuff, it's probably a mix of systems engineering. This is actually also doing things like evaluating tools and frameworks and any other kind of services that we need as a company. So, for example, actually our first pilot customer is starting to use our system today. Actually, they're being given their logins actually today, which is really exciting. We're going to go out and celebrate tonight with, I don't know, drinks and champagne or something like that. Hopefully, I mean, actually, if it goes wrong, maybe we'll be working tonight. We'll see. We'll see. I'll find out. Yeah. Hopefully, champagne tonight. But yeah, I think one of the things that I was doing yesterday, we have some training videos, and so we have someone who's our marketing director right now who's actually doing training and customer support. She's, everybody has to wear multiple hats. And so actually I was looking for a video content distribution platform to put our videos on. So we can't really put it on YouTube. We don't want our potential competitors to see what our product looks like. So we ended up selecting a company actually in Boston called Bright Cove. They're also a technology company. I know they're hiring. I think they even do co-ops. So actually yesterday was a lot of integrating that with our product such that the video was secure and not distributable. So that's an example of something that I was doing that wasn't really programming. I was evaluating a couple different platforms, and I've done that for more than just video. I've done that for our services, for our database, stuff like that. So we are looking to raise money again this November. So our ability to hire start starting in January depends on how much we raise again. That being said, I'm actually really confident about how much we're going to be able to raise in this next round. That means that we'll be probably hiring, in addition to one co-op software engineer for 6 months, at least another full-time software engineer. We're hoping for someone with a little bit of a design experience, UI, UX. It's kind of hard to find. I don't know if that's something, it's not really necessarily healthcare related, but I know that there's some human-computer interaction stuff out there at Northeastern now that's being emphasized. It was just brand new when I was graduating, so we are going to be hiring. I'm happy to take names. Actually, we will reach out, we'll talk. It's really hard to hire good tech people. We're big on the co-op program because half of our engineering team, that's 4 of us, 2 of us are Northeastern co-op people. We're looking to take people who are just willing to learn and hit the ground running. So even if you haven't done a ton of programming, or you're in a IS or whatever program that might be actually applicable to help us come start, or MIS or any other similar field like that. I know that this isn't all just engineering people.
So GE Healthcare's program is actually pretty massive, but GE as a whole has been making a huge push into software and software engineering. So what we're doing for next summer, is we're hiring only, the remaining slots are for software engineers. And we mostly just have summer positions for internships. There are quite a few for co-ops, but mostly they do hire just for internships. And most of the internships are actually in Milwaukee. So that's something to know, that actually the internship itself is a pipeline into the leadership program. So they want to get more software engineers. So if you're interested in medical devices and are interested in actually going into Milwaukee, Wisconsin, there are quite opportunities for computer science majors. So it will depend. Like you don't get hired into a position; it's just the internship, and then they place you in the different locations at headquarters. So you may be working on an MR machine. Right now, I'm doing GE Healthcare Life Sciences, but there are other divisions within GE Healthcare, including MR, CT, X-ray. So there are opportunities in those areas in Milwaukee.
So for my job, I think it would probably be a little bit less on the healthcare side. I think any healthcare knowledge that you would have is a plus. For me, personally, I had thought for a little while that maybe I wanted to be a nurse, so I had taken some night classes at Bunker Hill, just learning like anatomy and physiology and things like that. And working at St. Elizabeth's Medical Center, you know, I got some of the front end, like, I guess like knowledge of kind of how like a work, you know, a typical day in a physician's office goes. And that definitely helps me in my role now. But I do work with people that have had no healthcare experience, and they kind of pick it up pretty quickly. And especially if you're, you know, working with people that are, you know, working in the team collaboration. You know, we will pick up. We have some nurses will pick up the phone like, why would there be 2 blood pressures taken in one day? Oh, that's very typical, you know, type of thing. So I would say it's probably a little bit, you know, less on the healthcare side, maybe a little bit more on the IT side. But if you have, you know, kind of a good mix, that's probably ideal.
GE, it's interesting because I actually came in with no healthcare experience. What they're looking for in candidates are that, of course, you have a great GPA, you're well-rounded, you're involved in the community and things like that. I think a lot of the things in healthcare, especially in medical devices, you can pick up on the job. It is a plus if you already know imaging processing and the like, but I actually had no experience in that and came in and been learning on the job. And even now, so that I moved on to life sciences, and I'm more in the automation space, and even then I had no experience in that space either. It's you know, a lot of the things you learn prior to that are applicable to a new job. So anything that you're missing, you just learn by training, learning from other people in your team.
I'll answer my own question. I was a computer science major with no other minors. I always liked computers, I always liked programming, and to me it never really mattered exactly what I was going to be working on, as long as it was challenging, as long as I enjoyed the people I was working with, as long as I felt like I was building something that people were using. And so it was just, you know, fortunate that or a coincidence that the third co-op I did was clinical trials. And so actually the networking connection that I had through that landed me this current job that I have, you know, there was this idea that supposedly because I had done clinical trial software before this, pharma industry, that I had the experience that would help me for doing clinical pharma product launches. And to be honest, my last job has little relevance in terms of the pharma industry. It's a completely different sector of pharma for what I'm doing now, and so I'm actually relearning a whole different part of that industry now at this job. And so even if you do have some experience in something healthcare, it doesn't matter where, you know, if you're going to be coming in from somewhere else. It's the aptitude, the ability to take ownership of what you've worked on and done in the past that demonstrates your ability to pick up something new.
A freshman can be considered, and it's more rare than a senior and junior, of course, but yeah, freshmen are considered.
Thanks. And for ours, you know, I was talking to my director actually yesterday. He wants to set up a co-op program at my office, and as well, we're also looking for you know, people if you're, you know, getting ready to graduate as well. And for us, definitely the software developers. You know, we have kind of a growing little department within our tech team. We have right now 4 developers, and they're working on building mobile apps. Right now it's iPhone, they're working on Android. One of the ones that they're working on right now, it's pretty cool. It's kind of a reminder. So after bariatric surgery, the patients need to weigh themselves every few hours, I think it is. And they need to kind of record that. And there were a couple other like measures that they needed to do. And notoriously, people are just very bad at you know, writing down their own weight or actually like doing it. So this app is going to remind them to do it. It's going to send messages to their care group, so like their you know, either a friend or a relative, something that they to remind them to do that. And that's going to get integrated into the health record so that that information can then be in there, so that physicians can review that. So that's just one of the projects they're working on. It's 4 people. They've got so many ideas of things that they want to do, so they're looking to grow. You know, so if you're a software engineer, you know, you can talk to me about that. And we're also going to be at the career fair. But I know for co-ops, you know, we had hired a couple summer interns. We had one actual high school student that was a summer intern and a senior at BU that interned with us last summer. I would say, you know, not to be afraid if you don't have what you think might be the applicable experience. I know when I got hired for my job, there was a lot of things that I had to learn to get up to speed, but I think the ability to learn is probably, you know, one of the best skills that you can possess.
You had the biggest shift.
Yeah, I had a
Legal
huge
to
shift.
nurse to.
Mine was, yeah, I guess for me it was like a continual process. I had graduated as a political science major, wanting to work in healthcare, and kind of just like stumbled my way into this field, which I think probably if you talk to most people that are in this field, they'll probably say that they somehow stumbled into this field. For me, I knew that I always wanted to help people, and I think that Robin actually touched upon this, but that's one of the things that I love the most about my job is that I feel like I have made a difference every single day, and I think like in the, you know, the co-op job that I had, I didn't feel like I was making a difference. I mean, like I was learning things and I was having fun, like the culture was fun there, but you know, kind of seeing a career out, you know, X number of years, I didn't think that I was going to get the fulfillment that I knew that I needed, and you know, I get that on a daily basis here.
For me, this was slow developing, so I developed this through the co-ops, even my first entry-level position. So I realized that in wherever I wanted to work, I needed to include these three criteria. So I needed to be in a location where I was going to make a high impact, work in an environment where the people that I worked with were, you know, that I actually enjoyed working with, that were talented, right? And on top of that, so the people that I worked with, the impact, and also the products I was going to be working on. So I developed that throughout when I was doing co-op and even my entry-level position, and I realized I wasn't getting that where I was. So I decided to make a switch. And in going to GE, I knew I was going to go there for the healthcare industry where I could make a difference, but also to really develop those leadership skills that I knew that GE was known for. So I just knew that I wasn't happy where I was, and I did it in a climate where there was a recession or post-recession, and it wasn't the greatest time to make a switch in the company I was working at. But I felt like I had the skill set. I had just recently graduated from a master's in I know if you're a pretty good engineer, there are companies out there that are looking even in the recession. So I decided to make that switch.
It's good that I got to answer last. I got to think about it. Really, probably the biggest thing that I find that I don't like about, or I didn't like, or aspects that I have not enjoyed about prior jobs, is when I felt like I didn't have any ownership of the stuff I was working on. So this is a big thing that I look for too when we've been trying to recruit other engineers. And that's, when I say ownership, that means the work that you're doing, you feel like it's actually being used and that what you do matters. So my prior job, I felt like I worked on a project that probably went on for about a year and a half, and I contributed probably 2 or 3% towards that entire project. And I think the deployment of that software went out to some couple large companies about a year later after I left, and so it was just completely disconnected from me. I had no real sense of value of what I was actually building, and so that was one of the things that I think, probably looking back, has been the biggest thing that bothered me about a particular job. So when you talk about things that, having an impact, I want to be working on something where I see, like today, the customers using it. If you're working with people, 8-10 hours a day, that's you're spending most of your life with them. You have to you hope you like them.
More than your significant other, probably.
Yeah, right. So I mean,
better
that's it's something to consider. I mean, not a lot of people get to have the opportunity to pick a job that they like. But I think if all of you are here for this particular session, you probably have a lot more opportunity than some people. So make sure you find the right people that you like working with too.
And one thing that you may not be thinking about right now is is work-life balance. Once you start, building a family, and you may want to consider that, because right now you're in school, you may be going back and forth between co-op and school, but once you develop your career, I think one of the biggest things will be your work-life balance, how much time you want to dedicate at work versus at home or to other activities. So at GE, we typically don't hire civil or chemical into our program, but we do see electrical, bioengineering, mechanical, of course, and computer.
Chemical stuff too, probably.
Chemical, not really co-op
Okay.
or internship. I know later on, if you do life sciences, they may hire a chemical engineer for us, but internship program, they probably won't.
Industrial? Do you have industrial on that list?
We do. So we do have a program called the Operations Leadership Program, Operations Leadership Management Program, which is more about lean and being on the floor and being a leader on the floor and things like that, on the manufacturing floor. So if anyone's interested in that, that's another area to get into besides the software and the electrical and computer engineering.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing I can add to that is that a few people, like my manager is one of them, they were electrical engineers and they kind of found their way into this, not necessarily, I don't really know that much about engineering, admittedly, but they do draw, the people that I work with can draw parallels to kind of what they've learned to what they're doing, so I don't think that there's, at least for my company, there would be no like turning away somebody that had interest in it. That I think definitely for mine, because I work, with patients' records, so, just being aware, we work, I see very sensitive information on a daily basis, and so there was a lot of, training that I had to do for HIPAA, for just, being able to handle PHI. It's amazing, actually, some of the hospitals that we work with that will send us, like, an email of a screenshot of somebody's chart, and it's just, kind of horrifying. But just that we make sure that we're on our end very, strict about everything, things are password protected. It probably adds a little bit of time between the training and then just kind of getting the information back and forth, learning, kind of what you can send and what you can't. Like a medical record number is not considered alone. Is not considered PHI, but a medical record number and a birth date.
PHI for everybody.
Oh, protected health information. Sorry. So.
And HIPAA. They might not know what HIPAA is.
I actually don't know if I know what it stands for, but
Information
it's
Protection and Privacy Act or
Act,
something like
yeah.
that. It's
a
a
law.
federal law that regulates protection of patients' private information.
Yeah, so you've probably seen, actually, there's tons of news stories that come out about, somebody's house got broken into and their laptop got stolen and it had, thousands and thousands of Medicare patients on it. There are lots of things that we have to do to kind of protect against that kind of thing. So it adds some, extra work to it, for me, probably more maybe than them, but, not too much.
So from an engineering side, it's a huge rigor behind the quality management program and systems that we use. So at any time, we can actually be audited by one of our customers or by some agency, federal agency. So we need to keep track of all this documentation, there's systems in place for those things. So let's say if you were working at a company like, let's say, Facebook or Google, I think there's not as big of a rigor as there is in the healthcare space, especially medical devices, where it's highly regulated by the FDA and other agencies in the federal government. So there's huge rigor behind the quality management.
It's definitely so, for what I do with, for the example of leaving an allergy off of a chart, it's not exactly even knowing that that allergy is something that could be life or death, as much as, kind of, I guess, conveying the message that you have attention to detail, I guess, maybe like testing, trying to think of like good keywords that you could use in your interview, but there are a lot of ways that you don't have to say that you know that, you know, this drug and this drug
Right.
don't interact with each other. That's something, I mean, I don't know any of that stuff, but just to know that, I guess also to convey that you actually care about, you know, maybe showing like a track record of actually, you know, things that you've done in your past job. Maybe, you know, one thing that we actually ask in our interviews is name something, you know, at one point, if something went wrong or if you kind of like messed up in something, and that's fine, like everybody's done that, but how did you handle it? How did you take ownership of it? And how did you rectify the situation? And I think kind of like by giving, you know, maybe some examples from co-ops and things like that of things that you've done is probably a way to kind of prove what type of worker you would be.